Hi, this is Andrew, and today I'm going to walk you through an analysis of the Mars cards in KeyForge Call of the Archons, the first set. And this is the second one of these videos that I'm doing by myself, just to try to blitz through them. Hopefully I can get my brother-in-law Mark on for some of the rest that are still coming up, but wanted to keep making progress. Mars is a fun house. It can be. And so hopefully we can have a good time with this one. So the first question that I like to ask in this series is when I open a deck and I see that there's Mars on it, what am I hoping to get out of Mars? What am I thinking I might be able to do because Mars is in this deck? And the things I've written down here are control. Mars has some amber control, some creature control, even a little bit of artifact control. I'm looking for in-house synergy mostly. There's a lot of things that want to combo with other Mars cards. There's no shortage of combo-y stuff in KeyForge, but Mars really likes combos. I'm looking for things that might ready my creatures as soon as they come out. I'm looking for some absurdity, just some weird stuff. I might be looking for ways to increase the cost of keys to archive enemy creatures or even my own creatures, and I'm also looking for a bit of direct damage. And importantly, this. I mentioned that there are ways to make creatures ready. There's also a lot of stuff that says for every ready Mars creature. So there's a lot of stuff that wants your creatures to be ready, and there's some ways to make them ready. Mars got a really bad rap early on. I think before people had played the game a lot of people were speculating, oh, this looks garbage, this is terrible. And then I think there was a little bit of like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. And now, they're just a house. There's some good stuff, some bad stuff. I feel like it's pretty well balanced. But I will say a lot of the stuff in Mars isn't completely obvious, right? When you get a headhunter, you know what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to play this, and I'm supposed to fight with it. This is simple. When you get dock booked, and I'm supposed to play this, and I'm supposed to reap. And a lot of stuff in Mars is not quite that intuitive, and so in that sense there is a little bit of it requires some thinking out of you, and on the flip side of that, because of the way the synergies work, if it gets out of control, you can just really hold your opponent down. So yeah. Okay, favorite combo. I actually don't have this combo, but this is one a friend has, and that is combat pheromones with crystal hives. So combat pheromones is an artifact that has Omni. You can use 2 Mars cards this turn. Crystal hives is an artifact that says that when a creature reaps, it has action when a creature reaps, gain an extra amber. And so you can end up in a situation where you have a good setup that's not in Mars for doing a bunch of reaping, and because of combat pheromones, get to use the crystal hives anyway, and still do that effect, and then just do a ton of reaping, and that can be pretty powerful. So, and then the last question before we get into the cards is, what house do you most hope to see listed next to this one? And for Mars, it's Sanctum, because Mars has a lot of small cards that have powerful effects when you can keep them out and they combo, and having ways to protect them is really nice. Also, Sanctum's healing effects can pair really nicely with Mars's sort of spray direct damage effects. So I've really enjoyed that when it comes up. Um, Now there are some big creatures in Mars, and at least one that has a big creature that has taunt. So you sometimes you can get what you want in house, but it's definitely not guaranteed. And so if I see that the Sanctum is there, I know I'm more likely to end up with that stuff. Okay, so let's talk about some cards. We'll start with the commons, and we'll start with actions. So the first one here that we'll cover is that the rainbow coming through my? Sorry, I'm dealing with the light in the background there and trying to figure out the right way to manage it. So, but mostly you can ignore me and just look at the cards. Okay, so we'll start with soft landing, and soft landing is an action that has the effect the next creature or artifact you play this turn enters play ready, and yeah, that's pretty good. I'm actually going to move Squawker over to talk about next because they are somewhat similar. But yeah, the next creature or artifact you play this turn enters play ready. That's soft landing. Squawker gains you an amber and says ready a Mars creature or stun a non-Mars creature. Now these two get compared. There was somebody posted in the KeyForge Facebook group something to the effect that Squawker is always better than soft landing. And if the effect is, you have one of these and, I don't know, let's say Zookeeper in your hand, and your plan is to play the Zookeeper, have it become ready, and then reap with it, then they are equivalent, right? Except the Squawker also gains you an amber. So in that situation, the Squawker is better. And I think that's the most common situation to use these cards. I almost always want to use these cards that way. That's almost always how I want to use Squawker because I think readying my own creature is usually more powerful than stunning. In using Zookeeper as an example, would I rather gain an amber and archive an opponent's creature or stun the creature? Well, gaining an amber and archiving the creature is definitely better, is almost certainly better than stunning it. So, so that is how I usually want to use these cards. Squawker has the additional, it can be used to stun. This means even if you don't have any Mars creatures, it can still be okay. The other thing Squawker has going for it is you could use it on a card that was already out, right? If you have a Zookeeper that was out from your previous turn, you can reap with it, use the Squawker, and then reap with it again. So, whereas soft landing, it's only going to work playing the card out of your hand. It does have the additional advantage. You can use it on artifacts, and the other advantage it has, if you're playing a card like, well, I think the one case this could come into play is with Yxili Marauder, which captures one for every ready creature you have. Well, if you play soft landing and then play the Marauder, then it enters play ready, which means it's going to count itself as one of the ready creatures for the purpose of counting how many amber to capture. Whereas Squawker, it wouldn't work, right? You'd have to play the Marauder, it captures, and then afterward you play Squawker and ready it. So anyway, little difference there. I do think Squawker is probably better most of the time, but there are cases where a soft landing is better. Okay. Ammonia Clouds deal 3 damage to each creature. That includes your own. 3 is kind of a lot. You're going to do a lot of work with that. If you have 2 of these, you probably have a board wipe. Phosphorus Stars. This is one of my least favorite cards in Mars. You stun each non-Mars creature, and you gain 2 chains. Why is it not my favorite? Well, for one thing, because it affects your own non-Mars creatures as well. So if you get this in a deck where you have a really strong Mars creature board, and especially if your cards in your other houses are a little more action focused, then this could be really fantastic. So far, I've only gotten this in decks where I didn't have a really strong Mars creature presence, and I wanted to be using my creatures from other houses, and so this was usually definitely not worth the 2 chains. Sometimes I wouldn't even play it, even if it weren't for the chains. So anyway, and if it had an amber printed on it, it would be so much better. Okay, Mothergun is an artifact that has the action you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand, and you deal damage to a creature equal to that number of cards. So if you have 3 Mars cards in your hand, you you exhaust this artifact, reveal the 3 cards, do 3 damage to something. That's pretty good. A good portion of the time this is going to be better than Cannon. Sometimes it's going to be worse, but a lot of times this is going to be better than Cannon at a Brobnar. Yxili Bolter. Oh, and by the way, you'll see there are other cards. There are more Mars cards that also want you to show cards from your hand. So you'll see those. It's a common theme. So Yxili Bolter is a 3-power creature that... now, one thing to notice as we go through the Mars creatures is their traits, because I think the one that matters most is look for agent, because John Smith lets you ready a non-agent creature. So if a creature's agent, then it's not a valid John Smith target. Yxili Bolter, for example, is not an agent, so John Smith can ready Yxili Bolter. We'll come to John Smith later, but it's just worth mentioning. So Yxili Bolter is 3 power, and when it fights or reaps, it deals 2 damage to a creature, and if this damage destroys that creature, purge it. That can be a really powerful ability, especially if you pair it with doing some damage to a creature, so it's within 2, or there's a good amount of 2-power elusive creatures that are really annoying that this just purges, and that can be really strong. So this is nice. This is a nice card. It's pretty weak relatively, but it's if you can use it, you can get a lot done. Grabber Jammer, 4 power, 1 armor. That armor is really nice. And your opponent's keys cost an extra amber, and when you fight or reap, you capture 1. So this is just a great way to slow down your opponent's key forging abilities. You make the keys cost more. You're capturing their amber. It takes effort to get it off the board. I've seen a few decks with 3 of these, and that can be a really powerful tool to just get in your opponent's way. Next we have Yxili Marauder. Yxili Marauder, for each amber it has captured on it, gains has an extra power. I usually don't track that with a power counter because let me see here, because you have the amber there, so it's not too difficult to remember. But yeah, just worth noticing there. It is gaining that power, and then when you play it out of your hand, it captures 1 for each friendly ready Mars creature. Turn that a little bit there. Okay. So usually I think that's just better for the capture effect initially, and then it becomes annoying. Usually it's not something that's going to stick around forever or be super powerful. Okay, Tunk is 6 power, 1 armor, and after you play another Mars creature, you fully heal Tunk. That is pretty amazing, just for the fact that it doesn't require you to do anything that slows you down to get that heal, right? Like, if you have a Mars creature in your hand, you have a Tunk on the board, you fight with the Tunk, great, and then you were going to play that creature anyway, so you just play it after you've already fought with the Tunk and you get the heal. So that, I think, is a pretty powerful effect just for the speed factor of it. Okay, next up, Mindwarper. So this is a weird card. Again, not my favorite. So this is a Martian scientist. Oh, by the way, have we gotten? I don't think we've seen any other agents, have we? Not an agent, not an agent, not an agent, not an agent. Okay, so Mindwarper is 2 power and it's elusive, and as an act, so it can of course reap or fight like normal, but it also can, as an action, choose an enemy creature, and that creature captures 1 amber from its own side. Other people have said it. I think it's correct. The way to think about this is it's slow steal. Imagine if this had action steal 1, it would be basically the same effect. But you have to actually kill the enemy creature you pick before the steal finishes. This does reduce your opponent's amber pool, so keep them off of forging. So it's not terrible. It's just a little slow. Oh, it does get around. If your opponent has is a Gatekeeper that prevents stealing, whichever Sanctum card is that prevents stealing, this gets around that because it's not technically stealing. Next we have Zyzzix the Marry, which is 3 power. Notice there's a common thread here with a lot of 3 and 2 power creatures, and then a few big ones. So Zyzzix is 3 power and has Fight Reap. You can reveal a creature from your hand. So you reveal the creature from your hand, your opponent gets to see it. Then you archive that creature. That's an important thing that some people forget. So you archive that creature, and then you put 3+1 counters on Zyzzix. I originally thought this isn't that great. I don't care that much about getting the +3, but getting to archive that creature is great. Hopefully what you're doing is picking a creature from one of your other 2 houses, throwing it in your archives. So this means that now, so you reaped, you got to archive that creature from your hand, your opponent got to see it, but this means this frees up space in your hand. You're going to draw a different card to replace that, and then you can use it later, and you get +3 power counters. So that's actually pretty good. These can get big and out of hand, but I think usually people just deal with them while they're still small. Yxili Megamouth, 3 power, and it has Fight, Reap, use a friendly non-Mars creature. So this is, I think, maybe the one case where we get out of house synergy from Mars.
I'm not permitted to do that for you.
Hey Siri, get out of health center to eat from Mars. Wow, that's okay. That's not what I said. Anyway, okay, thanks phone. So when Yxili Megamouth fights or reaps, you can use a friendly non-Mars creature. That's great. I've had this on the board with a Commander Remiel before, so I got to reap, use the Remiel to reap, and then use something else as well. So you can get some cool chains going that way. Effect chains, not chains. Okay. Vizima Think Drone. This is, I think, one of the weaker cards, but it could be good in certain situations, but it's usually not. Vizima Think Drone is 3 power, and when it reaps, you may archive a friendly creature or artifact from play. When would you want to use this? Let's say you have an artifact that you wanted out for a period of time and you want gone, like a Speed Sigil or an Annihilation Ritual. Great. Or let's say you have a creature that is really damaged and you want to recycle it. You want to throw it in your archives and play it again in the next couple turns. Great. Otherwise, I just don't think it's that strong of an effect. Yeah, usually it's just sort of a 3 power creature that exists. Okay, and then we have John Smith, who is 2 power and elusive and an agent, and when John Smith fights or reaps, you ready a non-agent Mars creature, which is most of the creatures that we've seen. So that's pretty cool. Yxlyx Dominator, 9 power. This is a big common, 9 power, 1 armor, and and taunt. So this is, if you have some of these, you can hopefully protect your other smaller Mars creatures. It does interplay stunned, so that's annoying. Um, I think it's interesting. I've seen it's very tempting to want to like use a Squawker or something to try to unstun this as quickly as possible. But at some point I realized usually it's probably better to unstun or to use it on one of the things this is protecting to get the powerful effect I'm looking for. Unless I really just need to have a 9 power creature online as quickly as possible, which usually isn't the case. Usually I would rather just have one of those other effects that this is taunting to protect. Okay, next we have Biometrics Backup, the common upgrade in Mars, which gains an amber when you play it and gives the creature you put it on destroyed. You may put this creature into its owner's archives. It's worth just noting really quick, so far, not a lot of the things we've seen in common have amber printed on them. So that I think is, you'll see less just straight play card and print amber stuff in Mars. And so it really is dependent on getting those combos rolling. And if you can get the combo effects rolling, it's great, but there is a little less of the, just print amber. Okay, on to the uncommons, and starting back with actions. We have Battlefleet. So Battlefleet gains you an amber, and then you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand, and you draw that number more cards. I have used this to grade it. Usually, I don't like these like draw effects. I don't think they're that great. In this case, I've had enough situations where I could save up, play this, reveal 3 or even 4 Mars cards. This is a case where, maybe the Vizimathine Throne actually did some work and you have an extra thing to reveal, and you get to draw 3 or 4 cards, and a couple of those are Mars cards and you get to play them. So, this can be pretty good. Sometimes it's just gain an amber, draw a card, or even just gain an amber, but it can be pretty good. Key Abduction, gain an amber. Most of these KeyForge cards don't gain you an amber, but this one does, and it's not crazy that it does. Key Abduction returns each Mars creature to its owner's hand, and then you can forge a key at +9 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand. So, assuming you have the normal cost of 6, right? Let's say 6 is the current cost. Well, you're going to forge at a cost of 15. However, that's reduced by every card that's in your hand. So if you have, if you had 6 cards in your hand and you played this, that means you have 5 cards in your hand, which means it's costing 10. If you had 4 Mars creatures that came back into your hand when you played this, now you're at 6. So it's definitely possible that this ends up getting you a forge at a normal or even reduced cost, and that can be pretty good. There is, this can combo with library access to give you just free forging, which is ridiculous. But that's very, very uncommon to see. Anyway, so it's a cool card, and sometimes just returning all the Mars cards to the hands is a cool feature too. All right, Deep Probe gains you an amber, and you choose a house. You reveal your opponent's hand, and you discard each creature of that house revealed this way. This is a card where when I play it, I probably want to see my opponent's discard pile. Hopefully, if it's Archon, I paid some attention to their deck list and saw how many creatures they have in each faction. If I'm playing a Deep Probe deck, I definitely want to count up creatures when I'm doing this, when I'm looking at an ID card. If they have one house that has a lot more creatures, then I'm probably always going to call that when I do Deep Probe. If your opponent has this card and you're doing a Rise, don't do it for anything but Dis, right? If you do it with Dis, you can play them right away. But if you arise for Brobnar and your opponent has Deep Probe, all of your Brobnar creatures are going right back in the discard pile. So just be aware. This can be a pretty powerful card. Next, we have Sample Collection. It's an action. Count up how many keys your opponent has forged, and pick that many creatures from their board and archive them in your archives. Which is a nice like swing effect. Hey, you have some progress, but I'm gonna just shut it down. If you get it early, it's just a discard. Mothership Support is an action that gains you an amber, and then you count up your friendly, ready Mars creatures, and then for each of those you deal 2 damage to a creature. Notice you have to deal the damage, right? It doesn't say you may deal damage. It does say you may choose a different creature each time. So if your opponent has a bunch of 2-power elusives, you can just wipe them. But if you play this and you have some Mars creatures on the board, you're gonna have to deal damage to them. Now, because it hinges off of friendly ready Mars creatures, you can use your Mars creatures before playing this so that the count is what will be beneficial to you. So you can play around that a bit, but just be aware of how that reads. Next, we have Psychic Network, another card that wants you to have friendly ready Mars creatures. When you play it, you steal 1 for each friendly ready Mars creature. This is great. If you are ahead, you have board state, you have a bunch of Mars creatures ready, you can just hold your opponent down with this. EMP Blast. Action, gain an amber, and each Mars creature and each robot creature is stunned. Each artifact is destroyed. Okay, that can be pretty powerful. Most of the robot creatures outside of Mars are in Logos. So this is a pretty decent anti-Logos card. It is, it does hurt Mars itself. So just, anyway, sometimes it's better to discard it, but hopefully you're getting good use out of it. Next we have Orbital Bombardment. Gains you an amber. Reveal Mars creatures from your hand. For each card revealed, deal 2 damage. You can choose a different creature each time. So again, the damage is not optional, but the choosing a different creature each time is. So so all the damage has to be dealt. If you are in a situation where you say, oh, I have 3 cards on my hand, but I only want to do 4 damage, just play one of them first. I mean, or you can even, it's reveal any number, so you could play it and only reveal 2, and that's fine. So you do have control over that, but once you reveal the cards, you then do have to do the damage. Okay, Crystal Hive is an artifact that you can exhaust to have the effect for the remainder of the turn. Gain an amber each time a creature reaps. Combat Pheromone. Gain an amber. Omni, you sacrifice it, and you can use up to 2 other Mars cards this turn. No, it says use, not play. So the Mars creatures have to be, or the Mars cards you want to use have to be out. But because it says Mars cards, that could be a creature or artifact. Blip it. 2 power. No elusive or anything, so pretty vulnerable. When Blipip reaps, the next Mars creature you play this turn enters play ready. Powerful comboing there. Uxlyx the Zookeeper is 2 power and elusive, and when Zookeeper reaps, you put an enemy creature into your archives. This is kind of like a soft purge, and we saw the Sample Collection does the same effect. So putting an enemy creature in your archives is kind of like a soft purge, right? It's off the table, they don't have access to it. I say soft because if you want to pull your archives into your hand, their cards immediately go back to their hand. So there is that risk. And additionally, with Dysania in Logos, they could dump your archives out into the discard, in which case it would go back to their discard pile. So it's not quite as permanent as Purge, but it is a pretty powerful way to deal with things. You're just getting rid of a creature, and there's no restriction on where that creature can be. It doesn't say, flank or non-flank or anything like that. It's just a creature. So that's pretty powerful. Next, we have Ether Spider. And Ether Spider is 7 power, but does no damage when fighting. And it has the effect each amber that would be added to your opponent's pool is captured by Ether Spider instead. So this can slow down your opponent's 7 power, that's big, but they can also bash it for free. I mean, they don't take damage, so just be aware this probably isn't going to stay on the board very long. Yeah, probably won't stay on the board very long. Zorg, if you can get Zorg up and running, it's a powerful creature. Zorg is also 7, does deal damage, definitely does deal damage. Zorg enters play stunned, so you need a way to get it unstunned before it gets killed. But before the fight, you stun the creature that it fights and that creature's neighbors. So that's pretty cool. You're probably killing the one you're fighting, to be honest. But even if you don't, you're still going to stun it, and you're going to stun its neighbors. So this is pretty good. Next, we have Jammer Pack, which is an upgrade that gains you an amber when you play it, and gives the creature you put it on the effect your opponent's keys cost +2. Put it on something that's going to stick around. It does work. And then last in the uncommons, we have another upgrade, Red Planet Ray Gun, which gains you an amber, and then the creature is attached to gains Reap. Choose a creature, deal 1 damage to that creature for each Mars creature in play. That's pretty cool. So it's a good way to do direct damage. And you might put it on one of your things that wants to reap anyway, like Zookeeper or Mega Mouth, something like that. And notice it's each Mars creature in play. It's not friendly. It's not friendly Mars creatures, and it's not ready Mars creatures. Just each Mars creature. Importantly, the damage is not optional. So once you put it on a creature, if you wipe your opponent's board, and then you reap with the creature that has this on it, you still have to deal the damage. So just be aware of that. Okay, and finally we're on to the rares. And we'll start with Martian Hounds. This is a card that a lot of people don't like, but I've seen it be pretty good. I think the problem it has is that it doesn't print an amber, so it's not just automatically helping you win in that way. And then sometimes the effect will fizzle, and even when it doesn't, giving a lot of power counters can be strong, but there are a lot of ways to deal with it, right? Hand of Dis, other cards that just straight up destroy. In KeyForge, there are a lot of ways to just deal with creatures no matter how strong they are, so it's not that good. And sometimes it's just bad. So I think that's why people are frustrated about it. I have had like a 13 power Uxlyx Zookeeper, which is pretty strong, pretty crazy, but and it felt good, but it's not. I don't know. It was elusive anyway, right? Did I really need it to be that way? I don't know. And what Martian Hounds does is you play it, you choose a creature, and for each damaged creature, you're going to give the chosen creature 2 +1 power counters. Okay. Next, we have Irradiated Amber, which gains you an amber when you play it, and if your opponent has 6 or more amber, you deal 3 damage to each of their creatures. Good way to punish your opponent for being ahead. And you can follow up with a Shatter Storm. In a Shatter Storm, you lose all your amber, and then your opponent loses triple that amount. So this means if you have 1 amber, you lose it, and your opponent loses 3. If you have 5 amber, you lose it, and your opponent loses 15, even if all they had was 7, right? Then they just have no amber. So good when you have. It's really nice when the ratio just works out perfect, and your opponent really does lose the amount that it says on there. Then it's probably good to play. Definitely better when you have less than them. And then we have Martians make bad allies, in which case you reveal your hand and you purge each revealed non-Mars creature, and you gain an amber for each card purged this way. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how likely it is that this ends up being good for you. I think toward the end of the game it could be pretty good. It definitely, for each thing you purge, that opens up a spot in your hand that you're going to draw. So it's not terrible. But you know, if these are good cards that you're purging early in the game, that might be bad. But anyway, it's interesting. Hypnotic Command. For each friendly Mars creature, not ready, but just each friendly Mars creature, choose an enemy creature to capture 1 from their own side. Sort of like Mindwarper, but on a mass scale. Mass Abduction. You gain an amber, and then you put up to 3 damaged enemy creatures into your archives. Ooh. Yikes. I think that's some Probnar there in the art, which makes sense. They're probably a bit damaged. Mating Season gains you an amber, and then you shuffle each Mars creature into its owner's deck, and each player gains 1 for each creature shuffled into their deck this way. Again, if you have a lot of Mars creatures out, you probably wanted to keep using them, but if you just need a final burst to get you to the win, this could be good. Total Recall, gain an amber. For each friendly ready creature, gain an amber. And then you put all your creatures back into your hand. If you have mostly Mars, you know, then you can play them right back out. So again, this is another, it'll slow you down, but it can gain you a burst that hopefully can get you over the hump. Then we have Feeding Pit, which is an artifact that can exhaust to discard a creature from your hand and give you an amber. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, interesting. Incubation Chamber has Omni. It's an artifact with Omni. Reveal a Mars creature from your hand if you do archive it. The fact that this is Omni is pretty good. Like that, if you have a strong Mars creature setup, you can use this. You can set yourself up for like a big drop turn. If you couple this with one of the cards that wants to do stuff based on how many Mars cards you have in your hand, then this will amplify the number that you'll have. Custom Virus. It's an artifact. It gains you an amber when you play it, and it has Omni, sacrifice Custom Virus, purge a creature from your hand, destroy each creature that shares a trait with the purged creature. Oh, this is super situational. Super situational. But it gains you that amber. So you could end up in a situation where this is just crazy powerful, though, right? I mean, you're playing against Logos. You purge a scientist. You destroy all your opponent's scientists, something like that. Sniffer is an artifact that gains you an amber when you play it, and then can exhaust to make creatures lose elusive until the end of the turn. Commpod is an artifact that exhausts to reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand, and for each card revealed that way, you may ready a Mars creature. This is pretty cool. This can be a pretty cool card, right? You get can be used as sort of like a multi-squawker. Get a lot of value out of your creatures that are on the board. Get to use them multiple times. Invasion Portal is another artifact. Mars has a lot of artifacts. It's another artifact that can exhaust to discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard a Mars creature or run out of cards. And if you discard a Mars creature this way, put it into your hand. So this is sort of like the Mars version of Sound the Horns. Swap Widget is another artifact that can exhaust to return a ready friendly Mars creature to your hand. And if you do that, you put a Mars creature with a different name from your hand into play, then ready it. Different name is important, so you can't just use this to cycle out getting rid of damage. It actually has to be a different creature that you're putting out. Of course, then the creature that you pulled back, you can then play again. It just won't come out ready from this. So that can be pretty cool. Okay, Grommid. So Grommid is one that you really need to think before you play. Sometimes it can be quite good. Sometimes it can wreck your game. So you just need to be aware. Why can it wreck your game? Because while it's out, you cannot play creatures. So, and it's 10 power, so it's probably going to stay out for a while. And while it's out, you can't play creatures. But after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Grommid, your opponent loses one. So that can be good. If you can combo this with other cards that let it, for example, if you can have it come out ready, get a fight in, ready it with something else, get another fight in, and then on your next turn, use a Gauntlet of Command to have it fight something else and die. You can get a lot of value out of this, but I think you have to have a plan for how you're going to use it and have it die. You don't want it to just stay out indefinitely, so you need to have that plan for how it's going to get used up and die. Otherwise, you probably ought to discard it. So anyway, very situational but strong if you have the right support for it. This is one that really benefits from having good, strong support, as well as some enemy creatures to bash itself against. But I think mostly it needs some support to be able to fight a few times quickly. Then we have Quixlix Plague Master, which is a 3 power. And when it fights or reaps, you deal 3 damage to each human creature, and it bypasses armor. That's pretty cool. And then we have Phylex the Disintegrator, which has 1 power and has elusive. And as an action, it can exhaust to make your opponent lose an amber for each other friendly Mars creature. That if you have strong Mars board control, this can be quite powerful. Good way to keep your opponent dunked. Then we have Chuff Ape, which has Taunt. It enters play stunned, and when it fights or reaps, you may sacrifice another friendly creature, and if you do, fully heal Chuff Ape. So if you can get this rolling, you can keep it out, keep using it to really control the board pretty hard. And with that fight reap effect, if you have stuff that you're willing to sacrifice to it, it's gonna be hard to deal with without just a straight up destroy effect. Okay, and then last thing in Mars we have Brainstem Antenna, which is an upgrade, and the creature gains, after you play a Mars creature, ready this creature, and for the remainder of the turn it belongs to House Mars. You can use this on a Mars creature to have it just be so that you can use it, play another Mars creature, and then use the first creature again, put it on something powerful like a Remiel or something that's going to enable you to do cool stuff. Importantly, the interaction with Yxili Marauder here is if let's say I have a Valador with Brainstem Antenna, I play the Yxili Marauder, its effect resolves, and then the after you play resolves. So this doesn't count as a friendly ready Mars creature for the purposes of the Marauder. I believe. am not 100% confident in that, but I believe that's the case. And yeah, it doesn't help. So anyway, now one quick thing I wanted to note: Mars is susceptible to a little bit of rare hate cards in other houses. There's some cards in Brobnar that just want to kill scientists, I believe. I think there's some anti-scientist hate in Untamed as well, in the form of curiosity. So Mars can be weak to that sort of thing. But if you can get the right combo rolling, and you get a lot of Mars, you get your Mars setup going, you can do a lot in a turn, and it can be quite powerful. It just, again, I think the thing it has working against it is it's just non-obvious, right? These things are not everybody is going to immediately see how these things connect and could be used. It makes you work a little harder at it. So anyway, that's Mars in Call of the Archons. I hope you enjoyed it and that you keep forging.